The After School Club is brought to you with the help of Satchel, the team behind the UK's #1 homework software for schools, Show My Homework. To find out more what Team Satchel can do for your school, head to showmyhomework.co.uk.
You're listening to the After School Club, a podcast for telling stories about our time at school. My name is Rhys, Giles, and our guest today is Chris Coltrane. Chris is a comedian whose passionate but cheerful political shows are always a highlight of the Edinburgh Fringe, but you may also know him from his Lolitics political comedy night and podcast, and from his brilliant YouTube shows, The News for Idiots and Comedians Play Games. What happened to Comedians Play Games?
That's a lovely intro, thank you very much. I had to sell my capture card in the end to record the Wii, because the arts do not pay. And so I had to get rid of it. And also, I used to do this YouTube thing called Comedians Play Games. It was just me and literally one other comedian playing Mario Maker and talking over it, and it was jolly fun. But political comedy is really hard and takes a lot of work. I just didn't really have the time. So I still do it at the Edinburgh Fringe. It's very fun to do it as like a late night muckabout thing where people can just chill out after a hard day of flyering and being sad. People can just come to my late night show where there's no aggressiveness, no macho-ness. Just come and relax.
Also, like, for people who haven't been to the Edinburgh Fringe before, as a guest, as a audience member, it's not as sad as the comedians are always sad. All comedians are sad, but yeah, if you're a fan of, I presume they're still up on your channel somewhere.
Yeah, they are, but I tend not to talk about it as much anymore. Not because for any other reason that I'm doing other stuff now. Right. I'd rather people watch that instead. We'll
do the real plugs at the end, but I'll just say right at the beginning, if you're a fan of Beck Hill's podcast, it was the first proper podcast we recorded on the After School Club. She was one of the most prolific guests on Comedians Play Games, so you can go back and find those episodes. Right, so Chris.
Hi buddy, how you doing?
I'm not bad, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not bad. I bumped into you by chance the other day at Josie Long's gig, you won all the prizes.
Yeah, I know, yeah. It was a really, really hard quiz that consisted of, do you want a walnut whip? And I said the correct answer, which was yes. And then again later on there was another quiz question, and again the correct answer was yes to the same question.
Well, am I right in remembering that it was double or quits, and it was literally just, do you want another walnut whip?
Exactly. Ate them both. Was going to give them to Chris.
See, I mean, you will agree with me, being an educational podcast, that is what exams should be like. I think they should be just yes or no, and the question should always be, do you want a walnut whip?
I mean,
and the more you say yes, the better your grade.
It's common sense, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then anyone who's allergic and says yes, that's just they failed the exam.
What I'm actually going to say now is actually genuinely true. Okay. They don't teach that in school.
No,
they don't. They don't. If you go into a school expecting to be taught about whether or not you should say yes to 3 walnut whips, they don't teach it. They refuse to teach it.
I saddened to say that they would discourage it with the healthy eating pushes because of Jamie Oliver, basically.
Yeah.
And, you wouldn't get walnut whips in schools anymore.
It's a sad indictment of modern Britain. It really is.
It's political correctness, etc.
It's correct. Yeah.
All the rest of that, Anyway, Chris.
Hi, buddy.
Where did you go to school?
Should I actually name the names of the places, or should I maybe keep it?
Depends what you're going to say afterwards. Phil Wang obviously didn't name the names, and Stuart Goldsmith didn't name the names.
Yes, I think maybe also I'm right to not name the names.
Cool. Well,
because I'll be honest with you, Rhys. Like the remit of this podcast is to be positive about school, and I thought, that'd be lovely. Yeah, I'd love to do that. And then I started thinking back on my school days in a way that I haven't done in about 20 years. They're horrible. Yeah. I didn't have a good time at all. I've remembered all sorts of horrible stuff that happened.
So you've listened to the episodes and you know that my position, whether right or wrong, is that if you didn't enjoy school, it's still unfair to kind of say, oh, my teachers were awful because you were 15 years old and you made 15-year-old decisions and assessments on things. But it is fine to say that you didn't enjoy school, because we can explore that.
Yeah,
as an interesting thing. What did you not enjoy about school?
Well, I think also I was a dreadful child, not in sort of terms of bad behaviour, but I was a very, very different personality to what I am now. I was very shy, very awkward, it's all hard to describe my intellectual capacity, because there were moments when I was like around age 8, 9, 10, one of the very best in the school. And then I went from that to being in quite a lot of the lower classes from around age 12, 13, 14. I'm not really sure what happened or what went wrong, but then when I was around 14 or 15, I had a sudden artistic awakening, I suppose. I started thinking about things with a bit more depth, and then so went up again. It's like is it a sine wave that's like that, like up and down in my academic success? And I suppose related to that, just had difficulty sort of thinking about the world, understanding what was going on, had no common sense. So I didn't enjoy school, and I wasn't very popular. But I think the kids were right to not like me.
Oh, really?
I was quite a mediocre and boring child.
Oh. His comedy isn't like that.
I'm very different now.
I'd say you're probably one of the most energetic and, considering the kind of comedy matter that you look into, which is politics, which isn't the most exciting thing in the world, you do seem to be the most excited person who you're likely to see on stage. It's,
well, that's very kind of you to say so.
And so
that has been learned. Like, I did no really any sort of training in school or sixth form that would relate to the arts at all. I didn't do any theatre training. I did very little in the way of creative writing, public speaking, any of that sort of stuff. I did none of that. So everything I've done since then has been, I'm not going to say self-taught, because of course you learn from the media around you, you learn from your peers, from your friends. So it's not like I've acquired this knowledge all by myself. You consume what's around you. But certainly it didn't come from school.
So when you said before that when you were about 9 or 10, you were top of the class.
Yeah.
Now,
no big deal. It's just whatever, it's not a big deal. Oh my God, that is living off of former glories, isn't it? When I was smart when I was 9.
Yeah, no, I've still got this thing right now, which is that in GCSE, I still look back at my GCSEs because I was competing with my two best mates, right? Yeah. And now I went on to go to university and dropped out of university.
Me too.
My two mates I was competing with to try and get to the top of the class, one went to Cambridge and did a degree in medicine, and one is currently doing their PhD in a field related to astrophysics. Yeah. And but I still, I beat one of them at their GCSE grades. So.
You got to do the victories when you can, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Of course you
Just remember that. I'll be telling my children that.
But I also dropped out of university. I had that as well, and a lot of the reason for that was part of it was money, but in truth I didn't do very much work, and the reason I didn't do much work is because I was desperately unpopular through most of school and sixth form, and then when I went to university and it's a chance to reinvent yourself, I was so popular. I had so many friends, and that was wonderful, and I very much made up for lost time.
So you're still in the sort of what you might call, let's say the age 0 to 10 is the first stage of Coltrane. The second was you being unpopular up until the end of university, or up until how many iterations of your personality have you been through?
Just 2.
Okay.
Yeah, there's 2 personalities. Older. No,
you're still surprised
I don't know.
by your popularity.
I suppose there are eras, but I'm trying to think of an interesting way in which to answer that question.
Well, it sounds like you've reinvented yourself a few different times. But do you think they were conscious things that you did, or did you just happen, the way that my vintage clothes have become popular again?
So you just wait and then Stuart Lee says that about his comedy, doesn't he? Yeah. That he's never changed his comedy. He's just waited and then it goes in a cycle, which is quite nice. To a certain extent, I don't think it's that I've deliberately reinvented myself, because that sounds cynical. It's just that I have changed as a person, learned as a person, grown as a person. But when you are around people, especially in school, who know who you are, you can't just go into school and go, by the way, guys, I'm all right now. I'm sound. Because that's like the least cool thing to do. So all you can do is just wait until you just physically move to another place.
Right. So let's go back to, I was about to say it before, but you were good at school until you were 10, which is basically when you moved from primary to secondary school. And was that academically you were good at your subjects in primary school?
Yeah, very much of just about the subjects.
And do you think it was that you just hit the point of kind of the limit of your understanding when you got into year 7?
Maybe. I don't know. I've never really thought about it. I suppose, I genuinely don't know. I think that I don't know whether it was that there were certain lessons that I did excel in, and those were teachers that really seemed to care and have a passion, and those lessons I still did well in. There were some really lovely teachers amongst them all, and especially as I went into GCSEs, there were some people who really nurtured me and helped me to realise things, like my English teacher, my biology teacher, and my IT teacher are three in particular, who saw something in me and would like just give me books to read outside of class because they thought I had a spark. Or like my English teacher would like just give me VHS recordings of like plays that had been on Channel 4 or something, and that might not have otherwise come under my radar.
Oh wow.
So that was really nice.
Yeah.
That there were people who sort of saw some sort of spark in me. But I think a lot of the academic success came because I didn't have many friends, so I was mainly just sort of reading on my own. Like when a lot of other kids were playing outside, I was very popular outside, so I'd stay inside and read books and do the homework there and then things like that.
Well, that's interesting though. Yeah, that balance of but you said you weren't very hardworking, and that's but you did do your homework before you even left the building. If I said that I wasn't hardworking, then that wasn't what I meant. It wasn't that I didn't like. I think I worked I was going to say I worked averagely, and I suppose that can't make sense because you can't work averagely but then do academically very well. But I didn't have the social life that other people might have had, or the friendship groups. Yeah, it's not to say that I was like completely friendless, but like there wasn't much going on. There wasn't much going on there. Most of my memories are of like the other kids trying to get rid of me. It's really like I remembered this one the other day. There's a group of like 6 kids that I sat with on a table, and they were all friends, and I was on the table as well, and I wanted to be friends with them, and I was friends with a couple of them in the early years, but then as sort of grew older, aka from age 7 to age 8, they didn't like me anymore. And there was one time they were all quite athletic, and they're out in the school field and they wanted to do 100-metre sprints like that. Right.
They're having a lot of fun, and I wasn't the most healthy of children. I wasn't necessarily the best at the athletic stuff, but I wanted to join in, but they didn't want me there. So what they said to me was, you can be the cameraman. I went, all right, what does that involve? And they went, well, it involves go and stand over there, and they pointed to the other side of the field. Go and stand over there and just get your camera out, and like you can't see it at the podcast now, but like I'm miming holding like an old camera that winds up like that.
Yeah, it's like a charade's camera.
Yeah, exactly like that. And they said, go and stand over there, and you film us running. And I went, okay, that sounds fun, and I did it for about half hour.
Right.
So that sort of shows you the level. Academically very smart, but not very trusting, very gullible. I think that's a very typical example of myself, of people not wanting me around and trying to get rid of me.
So it's actually quite funny because I have terrible memories of something similar happening to me.
Which is
me trying to play football with my older brother, who's 4 years older than me, in primary school, and being recruited to be one of the goalposts. So.
What does that even mean?
Yeah, I know. What does it mean?
So you had to stand. There was presumably like another goalpost as well.
Yeah, it's 2. It wasn't just one.
And was there like a third horizontal one on top that you had to hold up?
No, I mean,
so it was unlimited vertical distance.
Yeah,
and just 2 posts.
Yeah.
So that's madness. Like, could anyone just kick it like 20 feet up in the air and it would count as a goal?
I don't know if I was recruited as being like the video referee or anything. I think it was literally just like I was on equal par with the sweater that they put at the other side.
I don't know who's been owned more there, you or me, because like on the one hand,
I think me. Yeah.
Well, I mean, in a way, because like they could sort of deliberately kick the ball at you and hurt you.
Yeah.
But you still got to be part of the game. They didn't send you to the other side of the field to get rid of you. They still let you be a part of it.
Yeah, but then also I think it's more. With you, it's almost like they're being nicer, where it was like you thought that you were an active part of what was going on.
I mean, were they being... I take your point, but were they being nicer? I see what you're saying, but no.
Okay.
So how about that?
Well, I'll tell you what, if there's any football teams listening, me and Chris have a lot of experience with, with these parts of the match, if you ever need anyone.
Sports.
Yes. Anyway, This is the episode where Rhys cries.
That's what I do. You get Coltrane in, he makes the host cry, he leaves, he wins.
You know what? I always thought doing this podcast was a bit of an exploration of... Because I hardly remember anything from school, especially like primary school. I'm constantly amazed by people who can actually remember a lot of their primary school experience from when they were like under 10. Because I've just got things like that, like memories of... Ooh,
well, probably you, like me, are probably trying to repress quite a lot of it because it sounds like there was a lot of being made to be a goalpost. It's really best to not remember that. I've got a lot of respect for people that can remember things in general. My memory's so bad.
Oh, yeah.
That it takes me so long to remember an hour of comedy from the Fringe. Like every single work in progress show I do, I have to read from a script because I just can't remember it.
An iPad, which implies that you have like megabytes of... Although I have actually seen the size of your scripts that you bring to work in progress, and it is like a novel.
It's quite dense. I mean, like some people have said that I'm being a bit hard on myself because I can't remember it, but then a lot of my shows are quite densely packed with political points, which may be true, but even then I still can't remember the jokes that come with them. And it just takes me so long. And then I see previews where other people go, oh yeah, God, I don't know what I'm going to say today. And they just go up there and do 20 minutes of stuff off the top of their head and storm it.
I have a notepad that has 5 words on it.
Yeah, exactly.
But so...
It's like Stuart Goldsmith on your last podcast going, oh, I've got bad memory. No, you haven't.
No.
You go, beep off, Stuart Goldsmith.
So, Chris, you're good at doing your comedy homework, but what are you good at doing your school homework?
Oh, that's a really nice segue, Rhys. Did you just think of that off the top of your head? Did you just make that up?
Yes.
Well, I suppose I was. Like I said, I did a lot of the homework in school because I didn't go out and play much. But I spent a lot of time in the library and in the IT room, which is good. I'm saying all this like I had a terribly sad childhood, and there were bits of it that were sad, but I quite like going to the IT room every day. It was really fun. I really got to... Again, there was one particular... In fact, it wasn't even a teacher. There was... I don't know what you call him, like the IT administrator, who I don't think led any lessons, but just liked teaching people stuff. He taught me how to program in BASIC and then in Pascal. So when I was 12, 13, I programmed like a national lottery random number generator. It was very complicated, but it was quite fun just learning how to do that stuff. And if it's a choice between learning how to program in Pascal or being beaten up, I'd choose learning the Pascal.
Did you know at that time what you wanted to be when you grew up?
No, goodness me, no. I can remember some of the things that I wanted to be when I was younger, which included a basketball commentator. Because I really like basketball, but I wasn't very athletic, and I decided that that would be an option for some reason. Even though, like I say, I was a very different personality then. I was very shy, not like now where I'm sort of, energetic and talkative. Really didn't have the personality for it. Same with, for a time I wanted to be a DJ, because I just got really into electronic music, but I never went to any parties or anything like that. I suppose it was almost like I felt like I wanted to do something creative, but never really either put 2 and 2 together or had people in my life who said this might be an option for you. So, for example, always loved comedy since an early age, like it was 4, 5, 6, quoting the young ones and things like that. I'd buy books on how to do stand-up, never once thinking that I would be a stand-up. It was purely because I loved stand-up. I thought, I'll read that. That would be interesting to work out how that works.
Have you read any of them yet?
What's that? Yeah, I take your point. I should. You're right. I mean, I'm one of the few comics at the moment, I think, who has never done a comedy course. That's not necessarily about... I probably should learn how to do comedy at this point.
Comedy courses are... Actually, no, I shouldn't say that because there's comedians listening to this.
I used to be very militantly against them, and now I see I was wrong. I think they're fine. There's lots of... I think that I used to think that comedy courses would teach you what a joke should look like, and it would create this tendency for everyone coming out of the schools to do a certain kind of comedy. And I don't necessarily think that is the case now. I think that anyone who is like that didn't have any spark in them in the first place, and they tend to fall away. I think of some good friends of mine who I won't name, but who have said that they just didn't have the confidence to do comedy without doing the course, and they're some of the most creative and wonderful people. And again, of course you have to learn how to do comedy, and one way of doing that is by doing lots and lots of gigs. But if you can get a good teacher who can show you the ropes and can help you skip a little bit ahead and can teach you mic technique and can teach you how to deal with heckles and can do these sorts of things that you have to learn, these are all lessons, why not?
But then I think, and you, as someone that was into comedy in your youth, the way that I kind of started to understand how to do comedy, not saying that I am, I have done a few gigs, was just by watching loads and loads of comedy. And so when it comes to people talking about mic technique and things like that, it's like, well, I'd watch Chris Coltrane and he does this with the mic, so I guess I'll do that with the mic, Some people take out the stand, some people don't, And then the thing I always found going to gigs and open mics where you could tell, or you can tell, the people who do go on those kind of old school courses where they are trying to teach you how to tell a joke, because they tend to do 5 minutes of one story and then try to tie jokes into that.
I think I agree with what you're saying, and especially that standard opening line of now, know what you're thinking.
Yeah.
Don't I look like XYZ? In fact, a few years ago, I did a thing at the Alternative Comedy Memorial Society that was a 10-minute bit just of that. Like sending up that one joke.
That's good.
So I take your point, but I think the mistake that you are making and that I made for a long time is therefore assuming that all comedy courses are bad and have no value.
And I felt
a bad course is bad.
About the books as well, is that actually the best books out there are the ones that say, this is how you call a promoter. This is this is how many miles you should expect to travel in a year. This is how much you should be asking for at this stage in your career. That kind of thing, where it's actually like practical elements of it. And
again, like, we have creative writing courses, and creative writing courses don't necessarily teach you how they will teach you things like how a story should look, what narrative structure is like, but that doesn't mean that all the stories that come out of those classes are going to be the same. It just gets you thinking, and those things are valuable, I suppose.
Yeah. It's funny when it comes to comedy, because every time someone says, oh, you know what, a joke is just this, and then you can think of 100 jokes that aren't like that.
Yes.
It's every time someone tries to distill it down to something that's really kind of easily digestible, there's more exceptions than there are in their rule.
Well, when I first started doing stand-up, I wasn't political at all.
Yeah.
Very, very silly and weird. I was trying very much to be like Harry Hill, like Noel Fielding, Vic and Bob, people like this. And I remember sitting down and trying to study a piece of Noel Fielding stand-up that was on YouTube. And it was at the Comedy Store. It was like on the TV version of the Comedy Store, not like Saturday Night Comedy Store, which are two different beasts. But it was on the Comedy Store TV show. And he opens without getting a laugh for like 45 seconds because he's just talking and setting a scene. And I thought that was fascinating. 45 seconds without getting a single laugh. And then the laughs come rolling.
Yeah.
And he's got the confidence to do it.
Yeah.
And you almost can't imagine that being taught in a comedy school, can you? Like,
but then that's the kind of thing, you watch these things as a kid and then it reflects on what you try to do later on. But I think it's also that someone could, some people would make the mistake of trying to do that when they've got their first 5 minutes. It's like, Noel Fielding didn't have to get a laugh for a minute, so I'll not do that.
Well, I mean, I'm sure that every kid is taught this in school. I remember my English teacher saying that you have to learn the rules before you can break them.
Yeah.
And it's a sort of standard bit of advice, isn't it?
Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah.
I'm going to, I just booked a holiday to go to Boston, and I was like, I wonder if I could do some open mics over there. In Boston, they give you 2 minutes.
No.
When you first start out on the circuit, you get 2 minutes. In New York, apparently you get 1 minute.
What's the point in even turning up?
But then you can see how that plays into the way that American comedy actually is they, you'd never get away with doing 45 seconds of silence in any American, like maybe, oh God, Jack is going to hate this episode. He's going to listen to this back and be like, oh, Rhys and his comedy. But like Mike Birbiglia is probably the only person who, American comedian I've seen who can kind of get away with just slow storytelling, a joke every 5 minutes rather than a joke every sort of 30 seconds,
Yeah.
But then I think that's, it all comes back down to, you've got 5 minutes versus you've got 2 minutes. In the UK, you can have a bit more structure and story.
But I suppose we're lucky that, I've never been to New York, but my understanding is that there are very few, function rooms above their pubs.
Yeah.
And the few that do have those rooms charge so much money that you have to have like 2 drink minimum spends.
Yeah.
So you just have to get so many people through the door.
Gig. But then also, I mean, it occasionally happens in London. In some gigs, you do have to go out and leaflet, but in New York, it's like arrive 2 hours before the gig and you go out and leaflet on Broadway to get people into there, and that's how you earn your 2-minute slot. You know?
Yeah, it's brutal.
It is brutal.
I mean, but I think that's a way that the London open mic scene has really changed. Like when I started, the concept of having to bring a friend to get stage time literally didn't even exist. It just wasn't a thing. And I did stand-up, I worked really hard in 2007, and then I took a break to pay off some debt. And when I came back, almost every gig was bring a friend. It was in that year, 2008, that it came about. I met my friend Tom Goodliff during my hiatus for some food, and he was telling me about these bring a friend gigs. I was like, nah, really? No, that'd be silly. And then all of them were like that. It's extraordinary. And I think that, again, it's because a lot of the rooms that would give you space for free now don't anymore. You know, a lot of those Soho venues don't exist. So the comedy has to happen in Zone 2, Zone 3, Zone 4, where there's no people around. So you need to bring an audience with you. Yeah,
and they kind of... Pubs in London, there's so many open mics that they start to kind of clock what's going on at different open mics. And if you want the standard kind of stereotypical one, it's 8 comedians arriving to do comedy to one another, and all they buy is sparkling water and the occasional Coke. Yeah. And they start to realise, that's not actually a great use of our time, you know?
Yes.
But but then, you know, we should, open micers, still have to kind of realise how lucky we are in London to have any gigs. You know, I started off at the same time as one of my mates who was trying it in Edinburgh, and I was saying to him, I've got some new material, and I might try it out this week, and he's like, this week? You're going to have to wait 6 weeks, mate, because the only open mic in Edinburgh is at the Stand, and it's got a 6-week waiting list, you know? And there's been people of, you know, open mic in South London, and they've come up from Exeter to do 10 minutes, you know? Oh, man.
Yep.
Anyway, school, eh? Wasn't that crazy? So you didn't know what you wanted to be when you grew up at the time?
I had so many different ideas, and comedian was never one of them.
Were you funny at school?
No, not at all. I mean, no. Right. And also, like I say, it wasn't very popular, so even if I did say funny things, I don't know whether the people would have laughed anyway. When I was around 14, 15, I got really into anime. I was into Japanese things in general, and I got really into anime and Japanese pop culture, made friends at various anime conventions, and almost led a double life where, like, at school I wasn't popular at all, but then in those anime nerd circles was very popular, and was able to say the things that I thought were funny that no one was laughing at in school, and found out that people laughed. Yeah.
So it wasn't that, you know, you had the power all along. To make friends.
I suppose maybe I like to. I mean, it's very tough. There's so many variables that who knows. Yeah. But I suppose that a lifetime of being addicted to comedy has to rub off on you to a certain extent. Yeah. Although it was weird. Like, I know, don't want to deviate from comedy, so I will deviate from school. So I will link this to school. But when I started doing stand-up, I realised that although I had picked up timing, I guess, from having absorbed so much, I'd never really stopped and thought, why is this joke that this person is telling funny? So when I started, I had great timing and trash jokes, and it took such a long time. I was bad for so long, and I feel like I have a base level of competence now. But I'd never stopped and thought of any of that stuff. And I suppose you can link that back to school, where again, like, there was no one at any point that taught creativity of any. Like, I'm a what's the name of Ken Robinson? That's the Ken Robinson. In his TED Talk, his story is he talks about how the traditional school structure needs to be trashed and start again. The way the hierarchies work crushes creativity. He gives an example of a woman who was just very fidgety and couldn't concentrate in school and had a tremendously difficult time of it. Went to see a doctor, and the story is that the doctor went, "Oh, she's a dancer. Put her into dance lessons." They did. She went on to write Cats. Yeah. And his story is that if she'd gone to another doctor, would have given her some pills and told her to calm down. And that's not to say that, you know, like, don't misunderstand me when I say that, like, I'm saying, don't give anyone pills if they've got, you know, like, that's not what I'm saying. All I'm saying is that was never noticed in her school. And similarly, I think it wasn't really, creative was not really taught in any meaningful way.
Yeah.
And everything I've learned there, I've learned off my own back and after the fact.
So I was going to say, what if you had the opportunity to go back as your older self and talk to your younger self and give him some tips?
So many tips. So many tips.
Go on. What are the top 3?
Oh my goodness. Well, I suppose they would. The first tip would be, it's going to be all right in the long run.
It gets better.
It gets better. It definitely gets better. I think that I would teach the younger me to chill out and be kind. Those would be 2 things. And by that, I mean, don't be anxious about what people think of you. Just do what interests you. And also try and be compassionate about people in the world. For example, the political awakening that I had around age 15, 16, no, not 15, maybe 17. That could have done with coming a few years earlier, I think. I remember being in GCSE history and asking my teacher what the difference was between left wing and right wing.
Right.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
Maybe other kids in the school did. Like I should say, by the way, that all of what I'm saying is not a reflection objectively on the school. This is just my experience of my personal education. And I didn't know what the difference between left wing and right wing was. I probably should have that by that age.
I still don't really know. I mean, I do know. But, you know, there's...
I mean, it's really important we nail this down.
If you were a teacher and you got asked that question,
yeah,
what would you say? I mean, right wing bad, left wing good. But,
I mean...
but of course, we shouldn't bring our personal views into school.
That's where it becomes tremendously difficult, isn't it? Because you don't want to bring your own personal biases into it. But I would say
the thing I mean is everything from your economic outlook to your view of abortion or something like that, you know, ties into that left wing, right wing spectrum.
Yeah, well, I suppose you'd need to teach it in a more broad way. You'd need to say that, like, generally, left-wing people believe in community in a way that the right-wing focuses more on the individual. And the results of that are that right-wing people would believe in lower taxes because most things should be privatised and you should buy things yourself, whereas people on the left would say, well, actually, we're going to have higher taxes, but we'll have public services.
So, your political awakening, you wish that had come earlier.
Yeah.
You spoke to your history teacher about what left-wing and right-wing
was. Yeah. I wish I'd been more politically aware earlier. I suppose a lot of kids aren't, but I sort of wish that I had been. Maybe it would have made me a nicer... Not that I was a horrible person, but I think that if I could have sped that process up. I suppose the other bit of advice I would give to the younger me is, even though this is going to sound like it is against all of your personality, young Chris, do a bit of acting.
Right.
Get a bit of stage time. Because one day you're going to want to be a comedian. And if you can get comfortable on a stage now, it will speed up the process a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't think you can force anyone to be something they're not. Like I started doing stand-up around age 20. My first ever gig was age 22. Although I properly started a bit later on in life. But I don't think I could have done it any earlier than that. I don't think I had the personality. Like, I loved comedy, but it took a while for me to change. They often say, when you're a comedian, that you're funniest when you are yourself. What they don't tell you, though, is that sometimes you need to change who you are when you're on stage. if you're fundamentally a trash person, you shouldn't change your personality.
You're funniest when you're yourself, but if you're not funny, be someone else.
Be someone else, yeah. Change yourself. So you can't force those things. But maybe if I could get myself to try being more creative. And I definitely wanted to be creative. Like, I tried... as I got into anime manga, I tried to learn how to draw. And parents are always very supportive of all of that sort of stuff, but it's very hard in school to sort of got to teach, say, right, this is what I want to do. How do I do it?
Do you think that you were so in the teacher's eyes? What do you think they thought of you as a student?
Well,
do you think those things were pity based? I don't want to. When they were giving you VHSs and books, was it pity-based or was it, oh, actually, I do see a spark in him?
Oh, man, there's so many. I'm seeing my childhood in such a new light. I'm really glad that I made the journey here. This is really, this is really doing myself worth a lot.
£70 an hour for your counselling at the end of this.
Okay, can I just invoice that to you guys? Is that right? I think, for example, the 3 teachers that took a shine to me, like I don't know exactly what it was that they saw in me, but it's probably no coincidence that they are 3 disciplines that are particularly creative. So, for example, English, IT, biology, the scientific method is always one of thinking. Right, what do we want to test? You know, like that's a very creative pursuit. IT, programming, like how do you make this thing you're going to make? And then my English teacher, of course, goes without saying, English language, English literature, the arts. It's probably no coincidence that those are the 3 teachers that saw something in me, as opposed to, for example, geography, which I always did very badly in, or PE, certainly, which obviously can be incredibly creative, but I just didn't have the sort of physical chops to do it. But that upsets me a bit as well, looking back. That like now, I love going to the gym, I love doing weights, I love doing cardio. In school, I hated PE. I was always the last one to be picked, that cliche. In my 6th form, everyone else had to do PE apart from me, and that is because I worked out a hack, which was that if you didn't go to PE on the first day, your name didn't get put on the register, and then you've got to miss it for 2 years. That's pretty smart, eh? That's not bad.
Kids listening to this, there's your top tip.
I can't tell you enough how important it is that you do that. It's such a good idea. Don't worry about getting in trouble. I endorse it.
Yeah. I also
there might be a disclaimer after this in the podcast saying that you shouldn't do that. Ignore that disclaimer. You should do that.
Disclaimer: ignore everything that Chris said. No,
but it annoys me that like now I in fact Johan Hari has talked about this, about how we never taught in school just the importance of and the joy of keeping fit for fitness's sake. It's always about team sports. It's always football, rugby. Even like the athletics, like the 100-meter sprint, aren't for self-growth. It's never just like, do you know what? If you eat well and you have an all right, you're sort of generally fit, you feel quite good. And if you sort of feel sad, then there will be a lot of reasons for that. But perhaps one of them might maybe be that you're not eating enough fruit and veg and you feel a bit lethargic and not very good in the body. And when I started going to the gym, it's like, oh, this is, sort of slightly improved my mental health. That's quite nice.
Funny, yeah.
And it's a shame that isn't taught. And I say, Johan Hari has talked about that and how it's weird that you only learn these things. He was someone that lost a lot of weight, and when he did, he went, why weren't we taught this in school? And it's a shame, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting that.
Especially as someone who's like a nerd, and so I assume that like sport. I don't understand how nowadays nerds like sport. That annoys me. When I was in school, nerds like nerd stuff, jocks like sport, and those were the dividing lines. Now nerds like football. It's like it's not. That's for them. We've got Bell and Sebastian. They've got kick bounce. That's the dividing lines. And like now, like Robin Ince has complained about like lads going to Bell and Sebastian gigs. It's like, well, you can't complain about that if nerds also like football. You divide or you don't. There should be dividing lines, and that should be it.
I mean, I don't know if it ties into your viewpoints about individualism. Everyone can like what they want to like, all right?
I mean, there is a chance that I wasn't being entirely serious when I said that.
No. It's a serious podcast.
But I do feel like, as someone that absolutely would have defined as a nerd as a kid, it just felt like all sports were not for me. And when I went along to PE, there was no attempt to change that. Like all the too popular kids, they pick the teams. Oh, I'm last again, am I? Okay. Oh, no one's passing the ball to me again, is it? Okay, fine. Oh, it's shower time now, is it? Okay, well, that's my PE lesson. Right. Glad I went to that.
It's interesting that you kind of, every time you talk about one of these kind of traumatic experiences, you're always relating it back to yourself and how your own personality could have been different to adapt to that situation, rather than you being bullied by a bully and someone who wasn't very nice.
I mean, there were a few bullies, but not really. No, there wasn't like one or two key bullies that made my life. There was one Tory boy who I won't name, but he was like the main Tory in school, like proper, like he like idolised Margaret Thatcher. It was incredible. It was astonishing how like an 11-year-old boy can have decided I love the free market. That's extraordinary. And he decided, I don't know whether I would have turned into a socialist anyway, or whether being opposed to that boy helped shape it or not. But he really gave me a hard time. a lot. And so that probably did help to to shape certain things.
So one of the questions we like to ask is if you were to go back to a school reunion now, is there anyone that you would attempt to avoid and anyone that you would seek out?
Well, in truth, I don't know if I would go to a school reunion. There's not many people there that I'd want to see. Yeah. Not through nasty reasons, just, I didn't know any of them really. Yeah. I'd rather somehow get the email addresses of the few people I did like and then just go to the pub with them. That'd be quite nice. There's like about 15 people I'd quite like to see again. They were all right. And the rest of the people I just didn't know really. So like I don't want to make it sound like the whole school was against me. It really wasn't. I just wasn't very popular. And I don't know many of those people. I'm not even sure I'd recognise them now. But there was like maybe about a dozen people who were quite nice, quite friendly. I wouldn't say that we were very close, but it'd be nice to see them again. In fact, I did. There was one guy who I was very good friends with when I was 16, who I didn't see for about 10 years, bumped into him on a train. And we went for a drink and it was lovely. He lives in Canada now.
Did he recognise how much you changed?
He wouldn't stop talking about how much I changed. He said it was extraordinary. Like, he couldn't believe I did stand-up. He said he wouldn't have guessed it. Which is nice in a way, because whenever you analyse yourself, you always worry you're getting it wrong, that you've got these big blind spots, that you're maybe self-aggrandising too much. So it's quite satisfying to have a third party come in and go, nah, you're really different, actually.
Yeah.
So it feels like the project is complete of self-improvement.
Have you had any of your old schoolmates come and see your stand-up?
No, although, weirdly, I was back in my hometown recently and someone was flyering for the Labour Party and recognised me, which was quite lovely. But then it turned out that he was cousins with someone I used to go with in school, and they tweeted me and said they're going to come see me in the Fringe this year.
Oh, nice.
And he is one of the dozen that it would have been all right to see again. So that's lucky. That's good.
All right. So, on that note of things that people are going to see...
Have we talked a single bit about the actual the reason that I came in for this podcast? Good. As long as I've not let you down.
Yeah. Look. I like comedy.
I do as well. What's your favourite comedy, Rhys?
My favourite comedy is the comedy of... We're definitely going to cut this out. It's the comedy of Norm Macdonald at the moment.
Ooh.
Yeah. It's that Stuart Lee thing where he says there's people who have opinions on comedians who've never even toured this country, and that's one of them. Norm Macdonald's new stand-up special is on Netflix. And also I've been kind of addicted to everything that Maria Bamford's done recently as well.
Always great.
Absolutely incredible. Right, to earn your plugs, Chris, we have a little quiz for you. As for a newscaster now, News for Idiots, find it on YouTube.
Yes.
Yeah. You need to know what you're talking about.
Well, see, that's really the key thing that you've nailed there, is I don't know what I'm talking about. It takes me so long to research one thing.
Let's say you have to get one of these questions right. Actually, no, I'm not even going to put a limit on it. So what's going to happen is I'm going to give you a name, and then I'm going to give you 3 quotes, and you need to identify which of those quotes was said by the person.
Amazing. This is going to be so much fun.
All
Brilliant.
Right. So person number 1 is George W. Bush.
Okay.
Quote number 1. I should say quote A.
What? Why? Why should you say quote A instead of quote number 1?
Because I said person number 1, so it'll get confusing. And also on this piece of paper I've got them labelled A, B and C, so I'll get confused. I also haven't put down which is the right one, so I hope I remember.
Quote A, quote 2 and quote I.
Exactly. Quote Monday. Quote A. I couldn't imagine somebody like Osama bin Laden understanding the joy of Hanukkah. Quote B. I've seen the Pokemon movie, which is probably the worst movie ever made on any subject ever. Quote C. I kind of think we have too many guns in this country.
I get the feeling that the second quote is from Milo. Because he talked about Pokemon and Digimon like in his early days before he decided that he was going to be like what he is now.
I could tell you that the second quote is from Ian Hislop.
Oh, is it?
So see,
I don't recognise number 1 and I don't recognise number 3 either, but I don't feel like he would say there was too many guns in the country, being a Republican, being from the NRA.
Using your news knowledge there.
So, although I don't recognise them, I would guess number 3, just say number 3 one more time.
C.
Sorry, yeah, let's see. So say the third one on the list again.
I kind of think we have too many guns in this
It's got to
country.
be one, hasn't it? Surely. We wouldn't have said that. Old George War Bush.
Correct. I couldn't imagine somebody like Osama bin Laden understanding the joy of Hanukkah. He said that at a White House menorah lighting ceremony on December the 10th, 2001.
I mean, he's technically not wrong, I suppose, but he wouldn't say it. Like, why would... I can't imagine Osama bin Laden enjoying the joy of a hot bubble bath. Like probably not. But again, it doesn't. What does it mean? It's not.
Also, the idea that he... that there is a possibility that he would have enjoyed it. So I couldn't imagine it, but...
Amazing.
Anyway,
Nailed it.
number 2 is Gary Lineker.
Oh God,
the footballer in.
I mean, if there's one thing I know about, it's sports and the footballs.
All right. So, quote A: I want to make the world a better place for women mainly. Quote B: if someone in the crowd spits at you, you've just got to swallow it. And quote C: Tim Henman, I guess, is sitting in the locker room, pacing up and down.
Okay, so let's play this game. So, number 1 is that does sound like... It sounds like the sort of accidentally hilarious thing that someone might say if they were trying to be woke.
Yeah.
So, that's a possibility that he could have sort of misspoken there and hilarity ensued. But I sort of feel like that would have been a meme. And I might have heard about that. I'm guessing all these quotes are from real people.
They are.
Who said the third one about the guns? On the previous question.
Oh, that was Piers Morgan.
Ugh. That is the correct reaction.
Yeah, exactly.
Whenever that name is said. So I don't think it was number 1. So the third one was about Tim Henman, and the second one was about spitting and swallowing. The second one seems the most plausible for a footballer, so let's go with that.
Correct. The second one, yeah.
I'm knocking this out of the park.
First one about making the world a better place for women was Claire Balding. The last one was John Infidel, who's a rugby commentator.
Oh.
And tennis, I presume.
They can do it all. It's all balls, isn't it?
Number 3, Nelson Mandela. Quote A: in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. Quote B: education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. And quote C: good guys shake an open hand. Maybe we'll be trusting if we try to understand.
I mean, that's not a coincidence that rhymes. That's a song lyric. There's got to be a song lyric or a poem. It's not Shakespeare, is it? It's got to be a song lyric, I think. But the first and the second one are both plausible. There's no both of those about the love you give and the love you take. And what was the second? What was B?
Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world.
I mean, that seems like a plausible thing for someone that lived under apartheid to say. That seems like a reasonable quote.
It's very Mandela-y, isn't it?
It is, but so is the first one, really. And the fact that you said, "Oh, that's very Mandela-y," makes me think you're trying to throw me off the scent. So I'm going with A.
Or it's a double bluff, because B was Nelson Mandela. A is...
I thought it was B, and then I was guided by you.
A is a lyric from the Beatles' The End, from Abbey Road.
Yeah.
And C is a lyric from the last song in Bugsy Malone.
Gosh darn it.
Good guys, shaking open hands.
Well, I know that officially that doesn't count as a win, but I'm taking it as a win because I was there and then you tricked me.
All right, I think it's a good effort. So, what have you got to plug, Chris?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for listening to me and Rhys talking this nonsense. I hope you enjoyed it. I do a few things that I'd like you to listen to. I do a political stand-up comedy podcast called Chris Coltrane's Lolitics Podcast. It is a podcast of live stand-up comedy. Every comedian has a podcast, but I think mine is one of the, if not the only, podcast of live stand-up comedy in the UK, if not the world. Now, Josie Long does a very occasional one, and that's it. So that's hopefully a unique enough selling point for you to want to listen to it.
Yeah, I can't think of any others.
Exactly. I'm really happy to be corrected on it. I keep saying it. I really want to be wrong because it feels like it shouldn't be right. but no one could ever think of one. So, but yeah, anyway, it's a podcast of stand-up comedy. It's 52 episodes, and there's great people on it. Me, Josie Long, Robin Ince, Nish Kumar, Johnny the Baptist is going to be on it soon. Grace Petrie, it's great. I do a YouTube show called The News for Idiots, which is like The Daily Show or Last Week Tonight, but less good because it's just me making it. But it's in that sort of effort. I try and explain the news to you with jokes, and it's like long-form, in-depth analysis of things and trying to fill you in on the news. So if you like the sound of either of those, I'd love you to give it a look. I'll also be up at the Edinburgh Fringe. I'm doing my 6th hour of stand-up. It's called Make Love and Smash Fascism. And I'm doing it quite a lot, actually. I'm doing it for the whole run and some extra dates. So give it a search. Put my name in and you'll find that. That'd be lovely.
And your previous show is on YouTube for free at the moment, isn't it?
My 2016 show is on there, and that's called Socialist Fun Time. No, I beg your pardon. We're 2017 now. Yes, so my 2016 show. Yeah, my last show was called Socialist Fun Times. So I think you will know based on the name of that show whether or not it is for you. Yeah, but I hope you'll like it. I tried very hard at it.
Great. Where can we find you on Twitter?
Chris_Coltrane. It's very important that you put in the underscore, otherwise you will find a black American rapper who is in almost every possible respect the exact opposite of me. And amazingly, there are people who are following both of us. Like just to hedge their bets, like they're not sure. Like, is it? I won't say the example. I was about to give some of the examples of some of his tweets, but this is a clean podcast, so no, we won't do that.
Yeah, and if you go,
imagine the tweets. Imagine the tweets a gangster rapper might tweet, and then that.
I hope he never does a Fringe show because he'll.
Oh gosh, it'd be very confusing. Yeah.
Are you on Facebook?
Yeah. Facebook.com/Chris.Coltrane. Okay, you can just put my name in and you'll find it.
Instagram?
Yes. I'm on all the good social medias. If you like me, then search for it. I'm not on LinkedIn. But I'm on the good social medias.
Ancestry.com? Tinder?
No, used to be.
Oh.
But Tinder's garbage, isn't it? But let's not do that. It's very hack to talk about Tinder. We won't.
Anyway. Remember, the After School Club is...
MySpace.
The After School Club is brought to you with the help of Satchel, the team behind the UK's #1 homework software for schools, Show My Homework. To find out more about what Team Satchel can do for your school, head to teamsatchel.com. Hit the subscribe button, give us 5 stars on iTunes if you like this episode. You can also follow us on Twitter, so whilst you're there following Chris, head to @TASC Podcast, and you can follow us too. You can also like us on Facebook. The After School Club is hosted by me, Rhys Giles, and produced by Jack O'Leary. The theme tune you're about to hear is Better at Getting Worse by Bokito. That's Jack's band, and it's spelt Bokito. You can find their stuff on iTunes and Spotify, and find them on all the social medias. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you join us again for the next episode of the After School Club.
Something more defined, and I never come down from this tree.